There is a psychological pattern spreading quietly through an entire generation. You can see it in the man who refuses to ask for help, the man who disappears whenever life becomes difficult, the man who tells himself he doesn't need anyone. He works alone, he struggles alone, he heals alone. And when something goes wrong, he tells himself the same sentence: "I'll handle it." At first, it looks like strength. It looks like independence. It even looks admirable. But underneath that confidence, something much darker may be happening. Because a person can become so accustomed to surviving alone that they eventually forget how to live with other people. They build emotional walls. They stop trusting. They stop asking. They stop depending on anyone. And eventually, the fortress they built to protect themselves becomes the prison they cannot escape. This is what we'll call the orphan boy mindset. Not a medical diagnosis, not a literal description of someone's childhood, but a psychological metaphor for the person who develops one powerful belief: if I want something done, I have to do it myself, because nobody is coming. And the dangerous part is that this mindset can look like ambition. It can look like discipline. It can even make you successful, until one day you realize that the same mindset that helped you survive is now preventing you from living. So stay with me until the end, because we're going to uncover how this mindset forms, why it becomes addictive, and how to break out of it without losing your independence. And if you've ever felt like you've had to carry everything alone, subscribe to the channel now, because this is exactly the kind of psychological story we're going to keep exploring. Imagine a young man who slowly learns that depending on people can be dangerous. Maybe people disappointed him, maybe promises were broken, maybe every time he opened up, someone made him regret it. So he adapts. He stops asking. He stops expecting. He becomes emotionally self-sufficient. And eventually, he becomes proud of it. He tells himself, "I don't need anybody." At first, that sentence feels liberating. You don't have to wait for anyone. You don't have to depend on anyone. You don't have to worry about anyone leaving. You become your own backup plan, your own therapist, your own motivator, your own support system. But there is a difference between not needing constant validation and being psychologically incapable of depending on anyone. One is independence. The other is isolation disguised as strength. This is where the orphan boy mindset begins. You start believing that your survival depends entirely on you. Nobody understands you. Nobody will save you. Nobody will give you the opportunity. Nobody will carry you when you're tired. So you decide that you will never need anyone again. And for a while, it works. You become resilient. You learn to handle rejection. You learn how to work while everyone else is sleeping. You become comfortable being alone. But there is a hidden cost, because when your entire identity is built around surviving without people, you eventually begin rejecting the very relationships that could help you grow. The internet has romanticized the lone wolf, the man sitting alone at night, a dark room, headphones, a laptop, no friends, no distractions, just discipline, just ambition, just pain. It looks powerful on screen, but real life is different. Almost nobody builds something extraordinary completely alone. Behind most major achievements is a network of people: mentors, friends, partners, teachers, employees, family, communities, people who opened doors, people who gave advice, people who challenged bad decisions, people who were there when the person couldn't see clearly. The lone wolf myth hides something important. Isolation can make you feel powerful while quietly making you weaker. When you're alone, nobody challenges your assumptions. Nobody tells you when you're wrong. Nobody notices when you're burning out. And nobody forces you to confront the version of yourself that you've become comfortable protecting. That's why isolation can become addictive. There is no rejection when nobody gets close. There is no betrayal when nobody knows you. There is no disappointment when you expect nothing. But there is also no genuine connection, and eventually, you discover something uncomfortable. Protecting yourself from pain can also protect you from opportunity. There is a moment when self-reliance crosses a line. It happens when asking for help begins to feel humiliating. You could be struggling financially. You could be confused about your career. You could be emotionally exhausted. You could have an opportunity sitting directly in front of you. And instead of saying, "I need help," you say, "I'll figure it out," again and again and again, until exhaustion becomes part of your personality. You don't ask because asking makes you feel weak. You don't delegate because nobody can do it as well as you. You don't trust because people have disappointed you before. And you don't open up because vulnerability feels like handing somebody a weapon. So you carry everything yourself: your problems, your expectations, your failures, your future, your fear. And eventually, you wonder why you're exhausted all the time. But perhaps the problem isn't that you aren't strong enough. Perhaps you've been carrying things that were never supposed to be carried alone. Real strength isn't the ability to carry everything. Sometimes real strength is knowing what doesn't need to be carried by you. Because there is nothing courageous about drowning while refusing to reach for a hand. Then something even more dangerous can happen. The lonely person begins creating an explanation for their loneliness. People don't understand me. The world is against people like me. Nobody wants to see me succeed. The system is designed to keep people like me down. Sometimes those statements may contain pieces of truth. Life isn't fair. People can be selfish. Opportunities aren't distributed equally. Some people receive advantages others never get. But there is a psychological trap hidden inside constantly focusing on those disadvantages. Eventually, your circumstances become your identity. You stop asking, "What can I control?" and start asking, "Who is responsible for keeping me here?" That question feels satisfying, because if someone else is responsible, you don't have to confront your own choices. This creates what we can call the victim-hero cycle. First, you feel powerless. Then you create an enemy. Then you fight against the enemy. Then you begin seeing yourself as the misunderstood hero. And finally, your suffering becomes proof that you're special. It's a dangerous loop, because now, changing your life means giving up part of the identity you've built around being misunderstood. And some people would rather remain miserable with an explanation than become successful without one. There is another question you need to ask yourself. Why are you working so hard? Are you building something? Or are you trying to prove something? Those two motivations can look identical from the outside. Both people wake up early. Both work late. Both sacrifice comfort. Both chase success. But psychologically, they are completely different. One person is building a future. The other is trying to silence a wound. Maybe you're trying to prove your family wrong. Maybe you're trying to prove an old friend wrong. Maybe you're trying to prove that the people who rejected you made a mistake. Maybe you're trying to become so successful that nobody can ever disrespect you again. And that motivation can be extremely powerful, but it has a weakness. Because if your entire life is built around proving people wrong, those people still control you. They're no longer in your life, but they're still inside your head. Every achievement becomes another message you wish they could see. Every success becomes another attempt to say, "Look what you lost." But eventually you have to ask, what happens when you finally prove them wrong? Who are you after that? Because a life built around revenge can still be a life controlled by the person you're trying to defeat. Breaking this mindset doesn't mean becoming dependent. It means becoming interdependent. There is a difference. Dependence says, "I cannot survive without you." Independence says, "I can survive without you." But interdependence says, "I can survive alone, but I don't have to build everything alone." That is a completely different psychology. Start by changing the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, "Nobody helps me," ask, "Who could I build with?" Instead of, "I have to figure everything out," ask, "Who has already figured this out?" Instead of, "I don't trust anybody," ask, "Who has demonstrated that they deserve a small amount of trust?" You don't have to open every door completely. You simply have to stop locking every door. Start small. Ask someone for advice. Accept an opportunity to collaborate. Find a mentor. Build friendships around shared goals. Allow people to contribute. And most importantly, learn to receive without feeling ashamed. Because receiving doesn't make you weak. It means you understand leverage. One person has limited time. One person has limited knowledge. One person has limited energy. But several capable people working together can accomplish what one exhausted person never could. That's why businesses are built with teams. That's why movements are built through communities. That's why almost every great achievement in human history involved cooperation. The goal isn't to become someone who needs everybody. The goal is to become someone who knows who to trust. There is a final stage of the orphan boy mindset that most people never notice. You stop waiting for someone to save you, but you also stop believing anyone can walk beside you. You become so independent that connection begins to feel like a threat. And this is where the fortress becomes a prison. Because eventually, you don't just protect yourself from bad people. You protect yourself from good people too. You reject opportunities because you don't trust the person offering them. You reject relationships because you're afraid of losing them. You reject collaboration because you fear being disappointed. And you call all of it strength. But maybe strength isn't always about standing alone. Maybe sometimes strength is standing beside someone without losing yourself. Maybe maturity is realizing that you don't have to choose between independence and connection. You can have both. You can be strong and still ask for help. You can be ambitious and still have friends. You can protect yourself without closing yourself off. And you can build your own life without pretending you built it completely alone. So if you've spent years telling yourself, nobody is coming, maybe it's time to change the sentence. Nobody is coming to live your life for you. That's true, but that doesn't mean nobody can walk with you. There is a difference. You don't need a savior. You need people. People who challenge you. People who believe in you. People who tell you when you're wrong. People who open doors. People who remind you who you are when you forget. Because the strongest person in the room isn't always the person who needs nobody. Sometimes, it's the person who knows exactly who to trust. So, here's the question I want you to sit with after this video. Are you truly independent, or have you simply become afraid to need anyone? If this video made you look at yourself differently, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we're going much deeper into the psychology behind human behavior, relationships, ambition, isolation, and the dark patterns most people never notice. And I want you to do one final thing. Comment community. If you're ready to stop carrying everything alone, not because you are weak, but because you finally understand something, you don't have to become less independent to let good people into your life. You just have to stop confusing isolation with strength. Because sometimes, the person who looks the strongest is the person who has been waiting the longest for someone to tell them. You don't have to do everything alone. And if you want to understand another psychological trap that can quietly destroy your potential, watch the video on your screen now.